Hello, Jon and Alicia Looney.
Hello.
So welcome back to the States.
Thank you. It's really good to be back. So
Yeah, I can imagine. So you were referred to me by one of our members or listeners, and you are. Tell me if I have this right, and we're going to talk more about it. But you are missionaries in the Honduras, where you. I don't know if you've built a school or a mission of some sort for disabled children. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah. We
Okay.
started a school for special needs kids. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So before we jump into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your family, and then we'll get into everything.
We're Jon and Alicia Looney, and we have two children, Drew and Austin, who are down serving with us in Honduras as well. We were special education teachers in the States. And so that was a passion of ours. And then we also felt like we wanted to go on the mission field. So we just prayed about what that would look like and really just prayed. And then an opportunity came up and it came available in Honduras to go and work in a school in Honduras it's called Abundant Life schools there. And so our plan was to go down there and get working in that school and establish a special needs program within that school. But as what happens anytime you do something that God's calls you to do, he saw a bigger picture. And so we were able to go down there and work for a couple years at the school and kind of learn how things are done down there, and then got us introduced to like the mayor of our village and some other people. And after a couple of years there, we were able to have a list of students and the permissions we needed to start our own school. And so that was really amazing to see how God worked that all out. And we can get into more detail about that, but that's just kind of a quick history of how we got to where we are. Is that
we were living in St. Peters, Missouri before we came to Honduras, and we both worked for the Fort Zumwalt School District. So I was at an elementary school, for Forest Park Elementary, and Jon was at South High School. So that's where we worked and lived before we decided to move to Honduras.
Okay. Well, I grew up in St. Peters, and I went to Howell North, and I had 3 boys that graduated from South High.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's a small world, right?
Yeah.
So you guys were both special ed teachers in the same school district. Is that how you met each other, or was there something else that got you together?
Actually, we met online.
Back in the day.
When you had to sign up for a Yahoo account, she signed up for one, and I guess she filled out a Yahoo personal ad and didn't even realize it. And then I had moved to the St. Louis area to help take over a hotel. I was in the hotel industry at the time, and I moved up to help. Me and a friend were going to take over a couple hotels. And we moved up here, and so I was new, and I saw her ad pop up, and I was like, oh, she sounds like a nice person to talk to, because she put that she was a Christian and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I need a new church. So I wrote her, and we started talking. And the first few times I wrote her, I didn't really tell her much about me and stuff like that. So I think the second or third time she wrote me, she asked me if I was some internet weirdo.
And yes, you know. Yes.
Little did she know.
Well, his last name was Looney, so that was kind of interesting too.
There you go. So establishing a Yahoo account, were you on dial-up at the time?
Yeah.
For people that know what that is still.
Yeah, that's funny, because I don't remember a time when I didn't have Yahoo, and that's because it's been around for that long.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So Alicia, you were like filling out your personal information without realizing you were.
Yeah, I thought it was just all part of, getting an email account. So then I started getting these emails from all these random guys. And I'm like, my email has been hacked or something. And then this one came in from him, and he's like, oh, I'm new to the area and I'm looking for a church. So that got me kind of like interested. I'm like, oh, well, I need to be the good Christian and tell at least where my church is.
That is really funny. Yeah, before you even gave a thought to putting your personal information on the internet, right? Because you didn't.
Yeah.
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 So, what church did you guys go to in St. Peter's?
We went to Life Point Church.
Life Point, yeah,
Okay.
Life Point Church.
Yeah, it's actually it's off of Mexico Road now.
Now it was off of Highway K when we went to it, and stuff. But now they got a new place off of Mexico Road. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not far from Rock Creek Elementary. So.
Gotcha. I actually interviewed Wendy Dickin a couple days ago, and she said her daughter knows you from Life Point Church. I don't know if her last name is Dickin or not. So.
Yeah.
So you meet online, and and you end up you're going to church together, and I assume you start dating as well, right? So how long did you work in the school district, or how long was it before you started thinking about missions, and what got you started thinking about that?
Well, I actually grew up on the mission field in Mexico. My parents are missionaries. So I grew up as a missionary kid. So missions was in my blood. And so actually when Jon went to ask my dad for my hand in marriage, my dad actually said, well, I know my daughter is called to missions. So before I give you permission, you have to go on a foreign mission trip to get the permission. So then my dad asked Jon where he'd like to go, and Jon decided to say China. So
go big or go home, I guess. I was like, if I'm gonna go somewhere, I want to go somewhere where I know, like, I'm at least as big, if not bigger than the people. Like, it's a big place, and I loved it. And I spent 2 weeks in China, and it changed my life. Like, anybody that goes on a mission trip and doesn't come back saying their life has been changed, I don't know what they did. Because it changed everything. And I was a paraprofessional for 8 years in the Fort Zumwalt School District, and then I went back and finished and got my master's in special education, and became a teacher. And then I taught for 4 years, and it was really funny because I thought when I got my master's degree and got my teaching job that maybe the missions was over, that we weren't going to go on the mission field. And little did I know that was actually preparing us for what God was calling us to do on the mission field and what he's been having us do. And so
during our marriage, we'd always talk about missions, and whenever we had opportunity to go on short-term mission trips, we did. We went on 3 different short-term mission trips with Life Point Church back to Mexico. So I was convinced that we'd be going back to Mexico, on as full-time missionaries. That was the thought. But, life happens, and sometimes you start thinking, oh, well, maybe this missions thing is just going to be a short-term thing, or we're not going to be full-time missionaries. But then God changed it all, and we were able, it just got so heavily impressed on our heart, especially when we were going on our short-term.
It had even gotten to real on our heart that we had a meeting with our pastors from Life Point, and we just said we feel like we're going to be sometime in the next year or two moving on the mission field, and we even at the time fought Mexico and kind of said Mexico.
Yeah.
And then Alicia's sister and mom, they take a group down to Honduras. Their Spanish classes, they teach Spanish classes at North County Christian school, and they take a trip to Honduras for the last 8 or 10 years, something like that. And her sister went down there, and they were at a coffee shop, and Mr. Jake, who is one of the directors of the schools in Honduras, met up with her sister, and was telling her all about it. And she was like, man, this would be perfect for my sister and her husband. So she got a brochure, a pamphlet, whatever you want to call it, and brought it back to Alicia. But Alicia didn't tell me for a month, because she's like, if I show them, then that might mean Mexico is off the table. So after a month of it, doing the beating heart thing, I think, and she couldn't take it anymore, she showed me, and I was like, man, this sounds perfect. So I emailed Mr. Jake just to ask him some questions, and I wrote him on a Monday, I think it was, and he says, I'm going to be in St. Louis in 2 days.
Oh,
can you meet with me? And so we're like, yeah. So we go and we meet with them. We hear it, and we were just talking, and all of a sudden I look over, and Alicia's crying, and I'm like, I thought the interview was going well. Why is she crying? Right? And so I leaned over to her, and I looked at her and said, what's the matter? And she just looked at me and said, we're not going to Mexico, are we? And I was like, I don't think so. And so that's how we ended up going to Honduras, even though in our hearts we thought Mexico or somewhere like that. But then God just made a real impression on our hearts for Honduras, and the rest has been great.
And I mean, we were already special ed teachers, but we thought, we took regular ed positions. John took the 6th grade position to teach at the Christian school, and I took the 2nd grade position. And so, but we thought, we could at least like maybe start a program within that school or whatever. But that wasn't the plan. We did, God did lead us to be able to start our own school now. But even when you try to like mess up God's plans, you're still going to end up where you need to end up.
And it's a testament to our first couple of years of, doing what God has put on your heart, because when we were there, down in where we live, they have soccer fields, and in Honduras, soccer is the major sport, or football as they call it there, and everything. And there was this beautiful like soccer field in the middle of our little town, but it's locked, and you have to pay to get into it. And I was just like, the first few months we were there, I was like, wouldn't it be great if we just opened that field up once a week, had kids come in and do like a devotional with them, and then let them play soccer. And I thought about it for months, and then finally Alicia's like, how about we stop talking about it? And we do it. And so we went to talk to the mayor about permission, and we kind of met the mayor through Abundant Life and working there and stuff like that, and kind of built our reputation there. And we met with him, and he loved it. And he's like, you guys are the first missionaries that like want to do something inside the city of our thing, and he's like, I love it. And so we started a program called Faye and Football that we did for 3 years and stuff. And it was we just did a devotional and had the kids come in, and just are doing that every Tuesday and being there and be consistent. The mayor saw that. So when it came time for us to go ask for approval to do our school, we were just blown away, because at first the mayor said, we asked for permission, and the mayor, because we were going to do it we have a little apartment-ish kind of room
like
in our house.
Room,
and we were going to do it there, and he said no. And all of a sudden we were both like, oh no, what are we going to do, And he said, no, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. And he said, I have a building I want to give you. I want to be able to be out in the middle of the town so everybody can see it. And then they had a town meeting that next month, and they got it approved that the city pays for the electric and the water for our school. And so that was just above and beyond anything we ever could imagine. So now we had a school, we had a building, and then now we were starting to get a list of kids and parents and people that would want our school. So the way it just happened was 100% God. It was amazing to just watch it unfold, just the relationships that we spent 2 years building and cultivating, coming back and doing that. So that's why we just encourage people, if God's got you something on your heart to do it, and do it to the best of your ability, because you don't know what he's opening later down the road with it. So.
Hey, Alicia, I want to back up a little bit. That's awesome, by the way. What did you say? What was the football thing called?
It's called Fe y Football.
So it was in Spanish. Okay, that's why I didn't know.
Yeah, it's Spanish, so it's faith and football, but it's faith football. Yeah.
Cool, great. So, Alicia, you grew up in Mexico Bay. I mean, that's home for you, right? And where was that? Mexico City or somewhere else?
Veracruz City. So Veracruz, right on the Gulf of Mexico there.
So you grew up speaking Spanish and English, probably, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And John?
English.
I was guessing that, but
English,
yeah. So I can understand why you would have been so like you want to do what makes the most sense, but you're like, man, I'd love to go back home, right? And and the Spanish in Honduras, right? It's not
yes, Spanish.
So John, how are your first year or two there learning Spanish and adjusting to that?
It was interesting, and it was fun though, because I felt like for some people it was a connection, because it's amazing how many people want to learn English down there. So they're like, you help me with English, I'll help you with Spanish. So I had a lot of people that helped me with that. The one thing I did learn is to never trust sixth graders with what they tell you to say, because they'd be like, mister, you should say this. It's a common phrase. And I, being naive, I guess, would go up into the office and say, hey, the sixth graders taught me this, and all the Hondurans' jaws would drop. be like, don't say that. Like, so if you're learning a language, don't trust sixth graders to give you good things to say. But it was fun, and so. But yeah, it's been really good, and I feel like now we've been down there 4 years. I have a working knowledge. I'm able to do the school and help still kind of teach in Spanish now. I can go to the store and get the things I need, but it really has been really great with the people down there that have been willing to help me, and just kind of, if I say something wrong, they kind of correct me, and we just kind of have fun with it. And you just have to be willing to make, like we got told in our training, and I've got to live it. You just have to be willing to make 1,000 mistakes and be okay with it, and that's how you learn. But yeah, it's harder when we're together, because she'll talk fluently and stuff, and then they look at me and I'm like, yeah, no.
I think he should. And
yeah.
Now our boys are fluent.
Sure.
Because now we've been there 4 years, so both of our boys are fluent in Spanish. But again, young minds, and then they're at school, 8 hours of the day. So they're getting Spanish grammar classes, especially our little one. He's in first grade. He's learning to read and all the basics of Spanish. Like if Jon could just go sit in those classes, he's probably.
It's really bad.
Put in the little desks.
It's really bad when I'm out with my little son and somebody says something in Spanish and I look at him like, what'd they say? And or something like it's fun. You just have to be humble about it and understand and all that stuff. But like I said, it's getting there where I feel like I have a good working knowledge and can communicate and stuff. But yeah, it's taken some time. I wish I was as much of a sponge as our kids are, but it'll get there. So.
And how long have you been down there?
We just finished our 4th year. This was our 4th year that we done.
And how many years has the school been open?
2 years. This was the end of our 2nd year.
Okay. All right. I mean, I love your story about, well, first of all, I love the fact you say, well, let's stop talking about it, just do it, right? Like it's a good idea. Yeah. Let's get kids in here and then just take that relationship that led to being able to open something that was needed, right? Something that was very much needed.
So, what we had learned just right off the bat, we were special ed teachers in the States. So we, we're used to working with kids and, them being completely integrated, like they are in the United States. Well, we quickly found out in Honduras, kids that have special needs are pretty much not allowed to go to school. So some of the kids that were at Abundant Life where we were teaching had siblings that had Down syndrome or autism. And when they found out we were special ed teachers, so we were like, oh my goodness. So we opened an afternoon tutoring program in our home for the siblings of the children that were going to school to come. But then we realized they're like, this is the only schooling they're getting is the couple hours we could give them a week. And we were working full time at Abundant Life. And so our heart is for children with special needs. So we're like, it was scary because we're like, at least with Abundant Life, we did have a salary. It was a small salary, but it was enough to at least live in Honduras. So we're like, oh, wow, we're going to have to just raise full support, from the States to be able to do this. And then we did think, we're like, oh my goodness, well, I guess we could just kind of do it at our house. But I mean, God, as soon as we said, okay, we're doing it, and we told the director from the school, we told him in January, we're like, okay, we're quitting at the end of this. And he's like, well, how many students do you have? And at the time we only had like 3. But he's like, so you're going to quit for those 3? And we said, yeah, we're going to quit for those 3. And he's like, well, what about how are you going to live? Like, you're not going to have any money. We're like, well, God will provide some way. You don't have a building. You don't have, we're like, God will provide some way. And sure enough, he has been more than faithful to provide. So we have a building. And now our school is accredited through the Secretary of Education of Honduras. And it is the first school accredited in the nation of Honduras for special needs kids.
That's amazing. So when you first went, did you raise funds? Did you spend time raising funds to go down?
Yeah, we had some funds, and I think it was a little bit. We had people that really supported us and helped us that did start off from the get-go supporting us. But I think it was a little bit tougher because we were making a little bit of a salary from the school. So some, people were kind of like, well, you're making salary from the school. So I don't think we probably did as much fundraising as we could have done because we are getting a salary and stuff like that. But then when, they asked us to step out, like she just told that story, like we went and talked to the director, and he's like, do you have a building? We're like, nope. He's like, do you have students? And we're like, well, as of right now, no. We have 3. And then he's like, do you have support? And I said, no. And so we just prayed about it, and we just were like, we need probably about another $900 to $1,200 a month support to make this work. And it was, so this summer, that next summer, this was in January, that summer we'll go home and we'll try to raise that support.
Mm-hmm.
And what was amazing is after we signed our letter of intent to say we weren't coming back officially to the school, like she said, within a month we had a building, we had the support of the mayor behind us, we had a list of 30 potential students, so we actually had to cut it down because we could only take so many.
Yeah.
And then that summer, before we went home that summer, we told people kind of on Facebook and messaging and stuff like that we were stepping away and going to go full time. So we had to raise our support. We had $600 or $700 of more a month already submitted before we even went back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, that when she talks about how God provided, that's it. That's what we got to see, is God just opened door after door. And it was just amazing. And like she said, we got to open up the first school that is recognized and accredited by the Department of Education in Honduras, that for school that is specifically for special needs children. And it's like, that's such a blessing. And then we were on a task force the last year and a half, probably, where they wrote a training manual for all teachers to help them learn how to work with children with special needs and what they can do. And this manual just got printed in November of this year, I think October or November.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's being sent out to every school throughout the nation and to anywhere, colleges that teach teachers how to become, and they're going to get that manual. And so that to us was just God even
taking
our impact even bigger, because we could only do so much as 2 people, but that manual is going to train many teachers on how to accept kids with that. And I think it's going to open even more doors. And so I think it's just, we're blown away by what we've been able to see done in the last 2 years. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So will that enable more schools to take on kids with special needs then?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So now they were going to implement it this school year, but their school year starts in February in Honduras. It goes February to November. So then COVID-19 has hit. But basically what they're going to do is give each school building will have these manuals and a kind of a tool training or whatever. And then Jon and I will be asked to travel and do little workshops and just give tools in the hands of the teachers that could work with. I mean, at this point, we're even talking kiddos that just are having some dyslexia, ADHD, some stuff that in the States it would just be very little, assistance, but they don't know how to help the kiddos. So, and they have great hearts, but if they don't know how to help them, so that's a next big puzzle piece for us that we're excited about.
And even with that, with our schedule, was another thing where we just see God provided, because when we started our school, we decided we would do Monday through Thursday, do our school, and then we do it from 8 to 12 or 12:30ish and stuff like that. And because these kids are going from no school, we didn't want to have them in from 8 to 4 and overwhelm them. And so we had Friday, because we're going to need a day off during the week to go get supplies, and on the weekends it's just crazy trying to get stuff on the weekends there. So we're we'll have Friday as our work day. And now what's great about that is, because we had Fridays off built in, those are the days we can go and do these trainings and stuff, because they're working during the week. So it's really, even with the way we scheduled our school at the time, God was setting that up and had that on my heart to have Fridays off. And I was because I just felt like we're supposed to have Fridays off to do what we need to do for our school. But now it's also opened up the door that we can go travel to these other cities and do these trainings and help. And so there again, he's just we make our plans, but he determines our footsteps. And so it's just been amazing to see.
So tell me a little bit about how I'm trying to think of the way to word it, but kids with special needs are treated, or those families, how do they deal with that if they can't send a kid to school? Or how does the culture down there deal with that, since there were no schools and no places for those kids to go previously?
So what we found was a lot of these kids are kind of hidden away. They're kind of they don't want to, the parents don't want them to be seen, because there is a huge belief that possibly the child has a special need because of something their parent did. And so that is kind of a lot in the culture, or that
Yeah.
this child is a mistake or a punishment from God. So that's not ever, I'm not trying to make a blanket statement. I'm just saying that that is kind of in the culture. So that is kind of been the walls we're trying to break down. The idea when we've met with the Secretary of Education is these children can learn. These children can learn, and they have a purpose and a plan given by God, but these children have the capability to learn. And so that's kind of blows their mind. The thought of that blows their mind. So it's kind of thought, well, this child is not going to be a benefit to the society. This child is not going to have value to the community, So I'm not saying everybody feels that way. I'm just saying that's kind of what we've run across. Mm-hmm. The mayor of our city, though, has a heart for children with special needs. And so God put us in the perfect village, in the perfect town, with the perfect mayor that is like, no, he wants one of our students to work at his office. He's actually said that. So he sees them. And so, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. So. And so that's why we even I walk down to a little store to get our snacks or get some stuff sometimes, and I'll take 2 or 3 of our students with me, so that they're out and they're seen, that they're with a school, and that we have fought, people when we first opened up our school, they left where we are. Witchcraft is a very, very, it's practiced quite a bit. And we had a dead rat outside our house and the school. And when they do that, as we talked to people, found out they do that because hoping to put a curse that place will not open or remain open. And what has been interesting is there's 2 or 3 other centers that got built up the same time our school did. And our school to this day is the only one that's still running, and everything. And so it's just but it was the one they tried to curse, but our God's bigger than any curse. And so it's been really, that's the thing. And even one of our parents of one of our students is a pretty well-known pastor in our area, and he was at one of our open houses or end of year thing or something, and he said a prayer, and he just did a talk, and he said, when we found out our daughter was going to have Down syndrome, we thought, what did we do? Why is God doing this? What did we do? And then he said, but as I've had her, I've come to realize that she's a special gift from God, and what a gift she is. And we're so thankful for this couple coming here and revealing to all of us what gifts these children can be. And so that just kind of shows you the culture that we're dealing with, is that they thought they were being punished when they had a kid with special needs. And now we're trying to show them, no, it's like these kids are actually, they're blessings, and they're almost like angels on earth because of their hearts and how sweet these kids are. And so it's been really good to help kind of break down that. Like I said, I don't want to put that blanket statement that everybody believes that way, but it is a culturally kind of seen thought, though we're glad that we can kind of be breaking that down a little bit. So
it's interesting because it's such that's a cultural norm is so hard to overcome, right? And I know you're saying not everybody feels that way, but if 70% feel that way versus the other 30%, we're seeing this in America right now. It over time, it is what it becomes. And so somebody even doesn't believe it will still have to hide their child.
Yeah.
That's so hard to even say out loud, right? That you have to hide your child. So how many students and teachers do you have right now in your school?
So we have 15 kids, and the first year it was just John and I, and then this last year, the first year we had John and I, and then we had an art teacher, Miss Suzanne, that'd come once a week, and then this year we had John and I and Miss Suzanne, and then we also were able to hire a Honduran, Miss Diding, and so we're so excited and blessed to have her. She did an amazing job this last year, and so we're just really blessed to have her, and that's what we want to do. Like, we also have talked to universities, like we want to have student teachers come to our school, Honduran student teachers, so that they can get the practical experience of how to do the different therapies and how to work with the kids. So
yeah, the more you pass that along, it can spread and spread and spread. And like you said, you were writing the policies or whatever for the whole state.
Yes.
What city are you in? I don't think we mentioned that.
We're in a little city called Yamarangila. It's right outside of a bigger city called La Esperanza, and our state, or in Honduras they call them departments, is called Intibucá.
Okay.
So we are in the mountains. We're about 5,000 feet. Very nice weather, basically between 60 and 80 year round.
Except for during the windy season, it can get to like the 40s at night.
Yeah, which is kind of cold without heat, but it's a nice, beautiful weather that we get to live in. So,
how big is your town where your school is with your mayor that's supportive?
About 10,000.
About 10,000 or so, or less,
Something.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It's a really, like, there's the city where we are is the center of the city, but then it's like it goes out. There's houses all throughout up the mountains and stuff, and
in
so
the little hills.
Yeah, so it's big in like the size of it, but there's just not population is big. But like where we work is the city center, and that's the one thing the mayor did talk about, is that we love that we live near the city center and that we serve in the city center, and our program is in the city center. And he's like, that's what we needed, the people that were here. He just
wants people to
loving on the city, because there are
our school.
Yeah, and there are other missionaries there that serve on the outskirts, and that's needed too. We're all needed. But that, I think, is one thing that got us in with the mayor, is that we were in the city, we lived in the city, like among the people, and stuff like that. And so I think that really helped us make a connection, even where we live and what he called us to do.
We live among the Lenca people. They're the indigenous Honduran people. They're descendants of the Mayan Indian, but they have their own language, and so we live very authentic. I don't know, like, a small village. So
yeah. So like for a village or a city of 10,000 to be willing to fund this, that's very meaningful. I don't know what the financial situation is there, but regardless, that's not a big sprawling city with lots of resources, I guess.
Yeah.
So you said you had 30 something kids apply and were only able to take 15?
Yeah. And I mean, some of the kiddos were like, we set like an age limit. So we have kids from 5 to 18. So initially there were younger, I mean, adults like 23, 25, 26, which, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I'm like, if we want to do that, we have to do another program for them. But it's heartbreaking, because you have a 25-year-old who's never been allowed to go to school, and I mean, a lot of our parents of our kids, they're like, my son has friends now, like, if you think about it, they're just in their house, and didn't really get to go out and make friends, and now they have friends, and so it's just been great. And then the parents, have each other now. We try to do special things where the parents all come together, so we can teach them, how to help their kids, but then they get to talk and communicate amongst each other and support each other.
Golly, go ahead.
One thing that we also see that I'm really passionate about is when I worked in the high school in the States, I would help with the transition, like kids leaving high school and what's next for them. And so when we looked at that 18 range, that's where we kind of did the cutoff, because that's when they can maybe go out and start really working. And I know there's a few of our kids that their parents own stores,
Small little
stores and stuff like that, and their kids are starting to help them. And they're like, oh, like we put our kid at the cash register and he works. I taught him how to use a calculator and kind of taught him this stuff. And they're like, oh, he's working in the store now. And like,
because he can use a calculator now.
So that's like a passion of mine, is like, okay, we have these kids from 5 to 18, and most of our kids are still a few years away from that, but we have a couple that are a couple years away from that. And what do we do with them? What are they going to do when they leave our school? I want to make sure that they're set up. And so it's really been great working with the parents, and even some of these other parents are like, oh, well, I own a store. I could take this other kid and my kid and have them work in my store. And so even kind of that community has just been great. And like even the mayor himself even said if one of them could come work in our office, in the city office, I'd love to have one.
City office.
So we've been working with stuff like that, trying to train a couple of them. We have a couple of kids that I really think could thrive at that and do really, really well. So we're trying to train them on how to do that and stuff like that. So that's been the great thing about the community, is just seeing the parents. And then we have open houses and the Christmas program, and the parents are just in tears. Like, it's just so great for our kids to have something to be involved in, and they have friends. And it's been a real blessing to our hearts. So
I can only imagine, in a way they go from being, pariahs really to having a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's significantly meaningful. That's amazing. So that school, that it's completely, that's your ministry now, and you don't have anything to do with the MK school. It's just totally.
Yeah. So our boys are still at Abundant Life School.
Okay.
That's their school.
I coach basketball team there, so I guess that's my connection to that school still. Yeah. I'm the boys basketball coach, but yeah, and we still.
And I've gone just to help with assessing some kids that maybe needed some extra help. But then this last year, what we were able to do in the bigger city, about 15 minutes from our house, it's called La Esperanza. There is a private bilingual school there. Well, they brought Jon and I in to do an all-staff training on special needs. Well, then after we did the training, they started seeing, they had a lot of kids that were struggling with reading and math and, had dyslexia, had, ADHD, different things. So then now in the afternoons, I've been able to evaluate. I have about 20 kids within that school. And I go 2 or 3 times a week in the afternoons after our school's done. And I have small groups, and I'm working with them on reading and on math and helping them, with some of their special needs as well. So, but that school was very open and receptive to having a specialist come in and help. So now I'm just hoping that I can train somebody else at the school to continue that, because you start getting very overcommitted very quickly. But it's been exciting to see like these 20 kids that were, had heads down, kind of their confidence down, and now that they're getting the help they need, they're starting to read and they're starting to understand, the numbers and the math, and so they're starting to be successful. So
that's just amazing. That's just it. I got no words. That's unbelievable. I mean, just to think of, I think probably that, that's where our country was maybe 50 to 70 years ago.
Exactly.
You have a kid with dyslexia, and dyslexia, we grew up thinking that you see letters backwards, but it means it's such a broad definition of just somebody that has trouble, really like real trouble learning, processing information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what to do with that, you just label that kid dumb and stick them in a corner and hope they don't bother anybody, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, wow, what incredible. I mean, just, yeah, incredible. So your school's been open 2 years, and you were about to start the 3rd school year. Is that right? In fact, or you did start the 3rd school year?
We will.
We'll be starting this next school year. When we go back, we'll be starting.
We do like end of August through June
okay.
In our school. Yeah.
All right. So, COVID. I mean, so you mentioned that regular schools start in February down there? Is that right, in Honduras?
Yes.
So are they all? Do they have the capability to learn remote or anything like that, or are they just shut down?
Very little, especially the church, the schools. I mean, there's small schools out in these villages. I mean, they're pretty much frozen. So, there's not technology. I mean, most of the kids don't have running water, electricity, or anything like that. So, our kids were able to still kind of do it virtual, like they were sending them homework, at least their homework assignments, and they were just working. Luckily, most of the kids have books. Unlike, in the United States now, it's gone so tech. But our boys had their books, so they were just able to continue like working through the book pages, and getting help as they needed it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But what we ended up doing, we were able to get permission from the mayor to do house-to-house therapy. So that's what we did at least once or twice a week. We made up special packets for our kids so that they could practice their skills and not lose, regress. And then we went, and besides just going and working with the kids, we took a weekly food provision, because like the parents aren't working.
Because in Honduras, since the COVID thing struck and they did the regulations, it's really been, the best way to describe it is martial law. You can only go out 1 day a week to do your grocery shopping, and if they have residency cards, and as long as the number on your card matched the day, you could go out. But if you weren't, you could actually be, and you were found out when you weren't supposed to be, you could be arrested and your car impounded and just a bunch of stuff. And so it was really difficult for some of these families that live up in the villages to get down there and get the stuff that they needed. So we were just like, if we're going to go and got this permission to go do these therapies, let's take some food and groceries too. And that was just something that we've done actually for the last 2 or 3 years. At Christmas and Thanksgiving, we do blessing baskets. And it's just a basket with about a week or two worth of groceries and like flour, rice, beans, stuff like that. And for these families, and we've been doing that for the last 2 or 3 years. And so we're like, let's just do that again for some of our families. And then some of the families around those families that, we saw, and we're like, man, they need it too. And so we did that.
Communities.
We did about 10 or 15 baskets and stuff like that. We're able to do that and go be a blessing. But what was great about that was not only getting to see our kids and their families realize that we care about them, not just as you're our students, and as long as it's school hours, we care. We care about them all the time, and they're always on our minds and our thoughts. And then the other thing was a few other missionaries in both Yamanguila and Esperanza saw what we were doing and are like, man, we could be doing something like that, doing these provisions and these food baskets. And so they asked us what we did and what we usually put in our baskets. And then they started food drives in Yamanguila and Esperanza. And I think last time I heard, over 2,000 families had received food and blessings because of these food drives. And they were other missionaries that kind of saw what we were doing and kind of did it on an even bigger scale. And they were able to do that, and they had the capability to do it. It was amazing to watch, and we're super proud of them. And so they did amazing, because there was about 6,000 people that were labeled as people that needed the provisions, and they had enough for 4,000. They said from the government, and what they were doing. But these food drives and us and the other food drives, we were able to fill the gap for the ones who did get. And so to me, that was just an amazing part of, like, even though it shut down our school, I pastor a church, so that got shut down. The tutoring that she talked about earlier got shut down. Everything about our ministry, everything about our ministries got shut down. But it was a way for us to still continue to provide and do and help and love on the people of our community and of our school. And so it was really great. That did help make going through the 11 weeks of lockdown really bearable. I guess you could say it was. I'm not going to sit here and say it was easy. It wasn't. It was really rough. And but we knew God had us there for a reason, and we knew we needed to keep doing something. And our hope too, when it got canceled in March, was, it's going to be a month. I think like everybody thought, like everybody was that hopeful. And so we were just like, well, we'll have school. And all that stuff. And then finally, I think a week or two before we came back, they finally kind of said, oh, they're going to use our school to store some stuff in so they can use this other clinic if they need to. And it pretty much was them shutting down our school for the year. We weren't going to be able to have school. And so, and then that's when we just really, we just prayed about it and just, what can we do now? And so, but yeah, so it was just coming up with a new way to continue to bless the people that we've been called to work with, even in the midst of this pandemic. And it's been amazing to see that people kind of got a fire lit under them to help these people who were hungry and couldn't work. And it's just amazing how during a crisis we see how important Christ is, and us being the hands and feet of Christ is. And so that was really good for us to be able to do that and be a part of that.
So it sounds like Honduras was on the same time frame as the United States was, like mid-March was kind of when everything hit the fan, I guess, so to speak, and they started shutting stuff down.
Yeah, exactly.
You just came back last week you're in Colorado now, right?
Yes, we came back on Thursday.
Yeah.
So you were, I mean, during the time, clearly you were serving people, you're visiting homes and dropping off food, and you were really, really serving the community. But what brought you to the point where you had to, I guess, evacuate's the right word. I mean, is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah. Well, we always plan to come to the States. We always come once a year, and we come during the summer months because that's when we don't have our school and stuff like that. So that was kind of already in our plans, but our plan was to come actually June 11th. Well, then we started getting some notices from the American Embassy that said, if you want to get out, you need to get out now, because the embassy was providing some flights with permission from the government, the Honduran government, to get out only American citizens. But they're like, once these flights are gone, it's gone. And I'm type 1 diabetic, so every summer when I come to the States, I have to get there's not insulin, there's not the fast acting insulin. I'm on an insulin pump. So all of my supplies, I have to get those in the States, and I get a year's supply. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to make it. Like, I've got about another month's supply till I get to the States, and then I replenish for the next year. So I'm like, that was a very real, like, I can't take the risk. We can't take the risk of getting stuck in Honduras and me not being able to get my insulin, because that's life or death there. So, then we went ahead and like got a flight that was like, okay, this is approved. Well, then something went sideways, and the Honduran government canceled the flight.
The Honduran government, the department it's called Senegar. It's kind of like the CDC of Honduras, kind of. Thing. They changed their guidelines for flights and stuff, and we've kind of found this out more after the fact. They changed their guidelines, and United just didn't really have time to meet those guidelines, the new guidelines they put out, and so we were on a Thursday flight. We were supposed to go on the 24th of May, but then I heard that one got changed to the 25th. But then when United called, we called United. They said we do have a flight on the 21st. So we're like, okay, we'll get on that flight. And then at about midnight of the 21st that morning, we were going to get up in about 3 hours to go try to catch our plane. We got a notification that flight had been canceled. And so then we were like, okay, so we got on the phone and like, well, if there are still seats for the flight on the 25th. It's like, okay, we'll do that. So we prayed, and we'd given away all our food. So we had to go buy 2 or 3 days worth of food
provision
and everything. So we bought 2 or 3 days worth of food. We did it, and all that stuff. We had our place cleaned up, ready to go. And then about 8 o'clock on Sunday night, we found out the flight on the 25th had been canceled. So now we were starting to question, because now it had been about a week to 10 days that no flights had come in or out of Honduras. And so we were really starting to get panicked. Some people are like, oh, we're missionaries. We're not supposed to be panicked, but we were. And all of a sudden we're like, we got to get back, and especially with her diabetes, she needs her supplies. We need to get back. And so we just started praying. And then actually another missionary who was Canadian sent out a thing that he had heard that the flights on Tuesday and Thursday of this last week were going to be approved, and they'd already gotten flight clearance and all that stuff. So we got on the flight for Thursday, but it was 2 or 3 days of still stressing out, nervous, couldn't sleep. But then it was great on Thursday morning. We got up to the airport, and it was chaotic at the airport. There was a protest by the taxi cab drivers, and the roads were being blocked. We barely got through.
Literally, we got through, and then they took the road, and it's like the main road to get to the airport. So like God was with us. Then we get to the airport, and they have the airport closed because like the airport workers hadn't got there yet. So we had to wait outside for like an hour outside the airport. Then we finally get in the airport. Then we have more checkpoints
and we're in line. We're in line.
Bleach sprayed on us.
We're in the line where you have to go if you have minors flying with you, and and the 2 people in front of us, they're both like getting rejected, like they can't get on the flight, and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna have to like, let's pretend these aren't our kids. No, but and all that stuff, but I'm just like, what's happening here? And then we get up there, and we found out there were special circumstances on their things. We give them the paperwork and everything we have, and we get through. But standing in line, my heart is pounding because we've already checked in for our flight, and I'm like, but everybody that went ahead of us seems to be getting rejected,
having problems.
And we're like, oh no. But I just said probably 100 prayers in that line while we were waiting and stuff. And then we got up and it went through, and we got on the flight, and
we are never so happy.
And it was great, and it really
to get off at Houston.
And we were and it's been a blessing, and we're still praying, and we ask anybody who watches this, I know it won't be maybe for a couple of weeks, to keep praying for Honduras, because they're getting hit with a tropical storm, really bad. Like areas of where we live are flooded. I know El Salvador is totally underwater, half of it right now and stuff. So there's stuff going on, and then of course they just sent out the thing saying that the current restrictions and everything that they've got going are going to go until at least August 15th. And the borders are going to remain closed probably till August 15th at the earliest. So we were set to go back on the 13th, and now we don't know. We are going to go back. I have posted something about that. We were saddened that it doesn't look like the 13th, and people think that we're packing up ship and never going back.
No, we're going
but
back.
We are going back. So that's that. But it was just kind of saddening that we just don't know when right now. Probably will be in September sometime, but. And also, so we're just praying for that, and so, but we are really fortunate that we were able to get out, because a lot of the flights since then have been canceled because of weather or government issues, and so we're very blessed that we were able to get where we needed to be. So.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult. I'm glad you made it back. I mean, your life's kind of in upheaval, which is a lot of people true with COVID going on, but especially for you guys, because you don't even know, you have no idea. I know you said September, but I know that while you say it, you're thinking maybe, right? I mean, so yeah. So, well, is there anything that I didn't ask, or anything that you'd like to get out there and cover, or someplace that people can go to look up your ministry and support you?
Yeah, if you want to look us up, we do have a Facebook page, Teach Me To, with the number 2 love. Teach Me to Love, all one word. But make sure you put the number 2, because if not, it'll take you to another weird page. So that just is where we document what we do. We take pictures of the kids, and we do have a Teach Me to Love YouTube channel where we'll post videos, and like we have our Christmas program on there. So if people want to follow us, that's definitely a way to do it. And I mean, it's in a couple of weeks, and I don't know if it's okay or not, but we are having a virtual sharing and giving night, where we're going to be doing a live broadcast for about an hour and a half or so, and we'll be taking, if people have questions and stuff like that, and just sharing what has been going on.
Sharing some videos of the kids.
And that'll be on June 20th. We'll be having a virtual sharing night and stuff like that, and a virtual giving night. So that's another way.
We usually do an annual trivia night in support of Teach Me to Love, of the Academy and everything. But with COVID, it's like, I can't do that really this year. But we're going to do a virtual something just to check in with people, and people can ask us questions, and, but yeah, our Teach Me to Love Facebook page is the best thing, because we pretty much almost on a daily basis post, we'll post up little clips of the kids, or, just little stories, their artwork or stuff we're doing at school, and, just to give people a feel of what we're doing. Or when we've had visitors, that's another way, if anybody wants to come and visit, we love to have visitors. We've had visitors from North County Christian School and from other churches and individuals.
A lot of people from
Come
Georgia.
spend a week with us. Some artsy people came and painted this beautiful mural in our backyard at our school. And so we love what we get to do and love to have anybody that else wants to join us.
That's beautiful. I'll make sure to put, so Teach Me to Love. Is that the YouTube channel also with the number 2?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, great. So we'll get that up here. I'll just stick it up here somewhere. So if you want to work with the Loonies or talk to them or support them or whatever, just hear about what they're doing. That's where you need to go. Teach Me the number 2 Love. It sounds like the word 2 gets you to a whole different gather.
Yeah, don't try that.
I typed it in one time, and now I have to correct people because if you go to that site, you're going to think we're weird. So but that's nothing to do with us. Like.
Yeah,
Look for our cute students.
It takes all kinds. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming. It really is exciting and beautiful to hear about what you're doing down there. I mean, to hear about kids, and like I said before, that had been basically separated or ostracized from society, that you're working to bring in. You're making a major difference in people's lives, and it shows through your ministry and what you do every day. And that's incredible. And hopefully you'll get to go back sooner than later and keep it going, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jon and Alicia Looney, thanks for coming on. And hopefully you get some more people to support you out of this, but more than that, just really glad you got your story out there, and we'll get some people to listen. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk to you later.